my favorite part about that was that, nothing else matters. This is what fighting fascism matters, because if we don't, fascism will fight us all. He was talking about the enemy from within, and that our cities are going to be a training ground for the military. And he recently did an executive order on Antifa being described as domestic terrorists. And so I wanted to go through this because he made a memorandum kind of outlining what that entails. They've designated trans people as like nihilistic domestic terrorists, which is psychotic, which is insane. Trans people are not the reason for your problems. Trans people are not why you can't afford rent. So it says there are common reoccurrent motivations uniting this pattern of violent and terroristic activities under the umbrella of self-described anti-fascism. These movements portray foundational American principles as fascist, support for, e.g. support for law enforcement and border control as fascist, to justify and encourage acts of violent revolution. Not true. This anti-fascist lie has been the organizing rally cry used by domestic terrorists to wage a violent assault against democratic institution, constitutional rights, and fundamental American liberties. And when I was reading this initially, I was like, that's like what you're doing. Like sending ICE out into the streets, sending National Guard out into the streets. Like that's what they're doing. Like they're doing that. A judge, a Republican judge, a Reagan-appointed judge just came out with a statement saying that like, Donald Trump is going against the First Amendment. He was going against the First Amendment when he was trying to deport Mahmoud Khalil, when they kidnapped Romesa Ozturk. And so he said that, and he wrote a very scathing review about how this is against the First Amendment. This is dangerous. This is unconstitutional. And I mean, it was. Of course it was. I mean, it was very obvious that it was. You know, all the talk in the beginning of the administration when we were like, are we in a constitutional crisis or are we not? Are we in one or are we not? I mean, of course we're in one. Of course we're in one. Like we are in it. We're in it right now. I just think people have stopped talking about it because we've normalized a lot of things that are not normal, and we normalized a lot of unconstitutional things and are acting as if it's just normal because Donald Trump is just so insane on a daily basis that there's so many things that happen throughout the day that we're just kind of like, well, I guess whatever, you know. And it's not normal. It's not normal at all. So this is the part that is concerning. Common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, wild, anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government. That's a wild one to put in there. After January 6th, that's like actually a really wild one to put in there, but sure. Extremism on migration. Again, another wild one to put in there, because me saying I don't want people to get kidnapped off the streets by masked individuals who nobody knows who they are, somehow is extreme. Which is insane. That's the extreme position, that me not wanting, you and me not wanting people to get kidnapped off the streets by masked individuals who have killed a man. There was someone, one of the ICE agents killed someone in Chicago recently. Somehow not wanting that to happen is extreme. Okay. Extremism on race and gender, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. Insane. This is insane. It's insane. It is concerning because this is not centralized, and so they are going to go after, I think, the groups that do have a little, that are more popular probably first. But yeah, it's terrifying because it's not centralized. Watching this happen and reading that is really insane to me, like right now, because like I said, I watched Judas and the Black Messiah, the movie about Fred Hampton, and it's insane to like read that and then look back at history, because the government has been doing these violent acts against activists, against, people who go against what the government's doing for a very long time. And they point blank assassinated Fred Hampton, just like point blank. And they tried to hide it and they couldn't. It's like very surreal hearing all of the things that like government has done in the past to the people and all these tactics that they've taken, watching that and seeing how like the Black Panthers were extremely organized, and like Fred Hampton actually went and talked to like white groups as well, like white groups that were not, that were probably a little racist. He also talked to them and he wanted to organize with them, and he started working with them to get organized. And so that's why he was such a threat to the government, because he was actually he was actually building class solidarity, and he was very organized, and he was trying, and he was organizing around class solidarity. And so that was a problem to them because it was anti-capitalist. And so now that they're trying to have the same framing again, and they're trying to act in a similar way where they're saying, hey, if you're against this war, because back then it was the Vietnam War, if you're against this war, if you're against capitalism, if you're against all of these things, then like you're an enemy and you're a problem. It is good to know that we have been through moments like this before, because watching a lot of movies about the civil rights movement and stuff like that, it was very extreme. It was so extreme. And so America has gone through these things before. Not saying that this isn't unique, because they're like consolidating power. America kind of has always been like this, and now we're just bringing back this 50s, 60s style of coming down on protesters and coming down on activists, which is a terrifying concept, because they were killing activists, they were assassinating activists, they were using informants, they were falsely arresting them, like with the Chicago 7. They arrested them even though they knew that the police actually incited the riot. They had proof that the police incited the riot, and they went after them anyway. They literally were jailing lawyers for just doing their job, holding them in contempt. I was watching a speech of Abbie Hoffman during that. He was doing an interview, and he was saying, this is fascism, this is fascist, like this is a fascist government that would go after us, that would go after our lawyers. Like this is an important time in history.
These harassments, and that's why these arrests and intimidations of our lawyers is currently going on. This is a sign of fascism in America. When you have U.S. Marshals dragging out lawyers that the defendants have already said do not represent them in this case, when they're dragged out of the room, when you have lawyers being held on no bail in this country, who have no criminal records or anything, who are members of the bar, when they're dragged out before other lawyers, I think we're at a critical stage in the history of this country. And the stage in the legal system is only symbolic of what's going on in the rest of the country. Namely, are we to live under a system of death and brutality and injustice, or are we to embark on a new nation dedicated to life and love? And I think that's what's at stake here in this trial. It's in the words of the American Civil Liberties Union, this is the most important political trial in the history of the country.
I think we can learn a lot from like looking back at that time. I think we can learn a lot from how those activists like handled things and how they organized, and unfortunately, the reason that they did go after them like that is because they were successful, and because they were organizing, and because they were doing class solidarity. I do think that the way that the Black Panthers organized, and I know there were a lot of other different groups that organized back then, but the organization and the class solidarity and just trying to bring everybody together to organize for better conditions, I do think is important. I've been thinking a lot about that. I actually wanted to watch like a Fred Hampton speech really quick, and I think that goes along with this, because I've literally been like going down a rabbit hole of like all their speeches and Abbie Hoffman, and I'm gonna buy his book. It's called Steal This Book. I feel like I've been getting so angry. I'm just like angry all the time, and like watching them and like seeing how they handled all these things, and just like seeing them being so blatantly honest all the time and never backing down is actually really like, it gives me hope actually. Like watching it has actually been really helpful.
They feel is going through all types of physical and mental torture. But that's all right.
Okay, so this was during the Chicago 7's trial. The Chicago 7's trial was originally the Chicago 8 because Bobby Seals was a part of that trial. And he was the only black man that was a part of that, and he is actually one of the co-founders of the Black Panther Party. He like made a speech. He wasn't even there for that long for the riot in Chicago. I don't even think it was a police riot in Chicago. It was during the DNC. That's why that was the event that a lot of people were doing like a parallel for the Gaza, the one in Chicago, and how everyone protested for Gaza and they still didn't care. Of course, it didn't end up at the same way. But there were a lot of people that came out and protested during the DNC. And so back then, that's what happened. A lot of people came there and they were protesting against the Vietnam War. They got kettled in, but Bobby Seals wasn't even there. Like, he wasn't even there. They were trying to mess with him. He was also on trial for supposedly killing a police officer, but that was not real either. He did not kill a police officer. They were trying to frame him, and so they did a lot of these tactics back then of trying to frame activists and trying to get them in jail for things that they did not do, just to get them off of the street, get them stop organizing. And so that's what they were trying to do to Bobby Seals. But the way they treated him in that courtroom was just horrendous. He kept speaking up because he didn't have a lawyer, and his lawyer was in the hospital, and they wouldn't extend the trial to wait for his lawyer. And so then they literally gagged him and tied him to the chair for the trial for I think I don't know if it was like a week or a few days. Literally. And the lawyer for the other guys literally had to stand up and be like, this is racist. This is insane. He needs a lawyer. He got a mistrial for that. Thank goodness. The lawyer was charged with contempt of court for standing up for him, saying he needs a lawyer. This is unconstitutional. Like, what are you doing? And for literally tying him to the chair. And Abby Hoffman in that same interview was saying, this is racist. Of course this is racist. An interviewer was asking him, he's like, well, why do you think the judge is racist? He said, what do you mean, why do I think the judge is racist? Like, what are you saying to me right now? And he's like, oh, well, I mean, I just don't understand why you would think the judge is racist. So, I mean, listen, it's wild watching all of this, because it's like, wow, I don't have our reporters, have our journalists evolved? Not really.
We said even before this happened, and we're going to say it after this, and after I'm locked up, and after everybody's locked up, that you can jail revolutionaries, but you can't jail a revolution.
You can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution.
Right. You might run a liberator like Aaron Cleave out the country, but you can't run liberation out the country. You might murder a freedom fighter like Bobby Hutton, but you can't murder freedom fighting. And if you do, you come up with answers that don't answer, explanations that don't explain. You come up with conclusions that don't conclude. And you come up with people that you thought should be acting like pigs, that's acting like people and moving on pigs. And that's what we've got to do. So we're going to see about Bobby, regardless of what these people think we should do. Because school is not important and work is not important. Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
My favorite part about that was that, nothing else matters. This is what fighting fascism matters, because if we don't, fascism will fight us all. And I really like that. As I feel like it does get a little daunting every day to wake up and live your life in like a fascist state. And, I do think that we should speak up. We should fight fascism. We should use our voices. We should say our opinions, and it's scary. And who knows what's going to happen, but we should stand up, because if we don't stand up, this will continue. But if we stand up, then there's a chance that it might not.